The VHS Files presents the horror section. This podcast contains spoilers, adult content, and harsh language. Listener discretion is advised. And now, your hosts, Josh and Jason.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to VHS Files presents the horror section,
where we talk all things scary and spooky and whatever else that we want to talk about that most people don't even care about.
That's right.
There are a few people who care about these movies and love these movies, so we're going to talk about them for them.
That proves true because we released our New Year Dark episode last week, and without any promotion, without any putting it out there, we have, I think, around 19 listens so far for something that we haven't promoted. I'm pretty impressed.
Well, thank you guys who actually wanted to sit around and listen to me and Josh talk about horror movies.
Yes.
We love you. Thank you.
And like we say and everything, please share us, like us, give us a review. And if you have any movies that you would like to suggest for us to talk about, please let us know and we will talk about them.
Yeah, we'd like to even get movies, maybe that some movies out there that me and Josh haven't seen. And we've seen quite a bit of these horror movies. So.
We've seen quite a bit, but tonight we're talking about a movie that I am not super versed in, and Jason has been watching it since he was a little wee boy. Tonight we are watching Phantasm, or talking about Phantasm. We already watched it, but I have only seen this once. Well, with this twice, so I've seen it once before this, and for the watch for this is the second time I watched it. So just want to talk a little bit about you growing up with it, Jason. Do you remember, like, I don't expect you to remember your first watch, but I'm sure you've got memories, and you've actually spoke a little bit about Phantasm on the big show. So tell us a little bit about your background with Phantasm.
Well, Phantasm definitely holds a somewhat terrifying memories for me as a kid. As I said many times before, started with Friday 13th, middle of Halloween, but this is one I found later. I mean, and it did come out, I believe, back in 1979. Mm-hmm. So I was only 2 at that time. So I caught it later, getting up to around the pre-teen era, like between 10 and 13 or something like that.
Right.
But I will honestly have to say, even as, seeing Halloween, those movies were scary. This movie terrified me as a kid. I was scared because there's some real life events that happened to me that only Phantasm. That's the first thing that popped in my mind.
Right.
And I'm sitting there talking about it right now, and I'm getting like goosebumps remembering going back and reliving these memories right now of these scary moments that I had. Because the whole movie takes place with a funeral home and a cemetery. I mean, that's pretty much our whole setting for the movie. Mm-hmm. Well, at one point in time, we lived directly in front of the city cemetery.
Right.
I mean, like house, yard, fence, cemetery. So you looked the back door, you saw headstones.
Right.
So that's how close we were. And then later we lived right next door to a funeral home, like literally tree line funeral home. I used to watch them pull up and move bodies out of the back and take them into the back to do their thing.
Oh, so you were like Mike in this.
Yes. And that's why I say this movie, when we were trying to figure out movies to watch, and me and Josh have been friends for a really long time, and I know he's heard me talk about this movie because we always talked about the movies we loved as kids, but I was like, I love this movie, but it also scared me. And just a quick memory of one of the things that scared me the most. If you've seen this movie, you had the tall man and you had that hearse and you always had the cemetery. There was an instance, I grew up in a small town, so you went everywhere on a skateboard or a bicycle, and we had seen later was Mike, the main character, driving around in a motorcycle, but all I had was a bike. Well, in order to get from a friend's house that was on the opposite side of town, the fastest way was to cut across the cemetery to my house.
Right.
Okay, the sun's going down. It's getting dark. I think it's fall time like it is now, so it gets dark really quick, 6 o'clock. And I can't tell you how many times I've gone through this, and I always thought about Phantasm. But this one instance, I think they'd had a funeral that day, And I'm coming through the cemetery and the sun is down. It's like I got to get home because, that's the whole thing. Parents, be home before the street lights come on.
Yeah, if you're not home by the time it's dark, I'm going to give you a whooping.
Exactly. You knew you're going to get a whooping. Your mom's going to beat you with a flip-flop, something. It's going down. So I'm trying to get home. And I'm coming across, and it's not just a quick, it's the full diagonal width of the cemetery to get to the gate going into my house. And I'm coming across there, and out of that peripheral, headlights kicked on.
Ooh.
And it's the hearse from the funeral that they did that day. Oh, dude, like I'm talking about, dude, I got chicken skin right now. I can remember this moment, and it was pure terror.
Yeah.
You're still pedaling, but I'm not paying attention. And I wasn't doing like Mike. I had respect. I'm not going to cut across people's graves.
Right.
But I'm just coming. They had little streets through the cemetery, and all of a sudden it was pedals fast. And I look, and the hearse is coming around and to the street that I'm pedaling on, and he's moving. And all I think is the tall man is coming to throw me in the back of the hearse and turn me to a little dwarf that looks like it's straight out of Star Wars Jawas. And they're pissed off Jawas. But that's all I had. And I pedaled as hard as I could to the point to where, like, I'm missing pedals fast as I could go. Literally through the gate, into the backyard. And I know you've done this, and I know some of the listeners had, when you had to get in the house, be it a bathroom thing, or you're scared, or you're about to get your ass whipped because you're home late. It was literally bike to the ground and a steady run right into the back door, like just as fluid as you could be. It's like whoosh, into the house. And I remember shutting the door, and I'm sitting there shaking, and my mom's like, "What is the problem?" And I'm like, "The tall man's coming." And she was like, "You need to stop watching so many scary movies." But she knew what I was talking about. And we look out the window, and you see the hearse, and it was a regular, it's not like the big scary hearse. It's just like a Lincoln hearse that they had back then, pull out. And I'm like, I know that it was a regular hearse. I've seen it. But after seeing these movies so many times, that's what you first thing. And that's what horror movies are supposed to do.
Yeah. That's exactly where your mind goes.
Yeah. And still to this day, like I said, we're talking about it right now, and I'm like, oh
yeah.
So, and then, like I said, then later, it was a few years later, we moved. We're all still on the same street. We just moved to a different house, and we were right next to the local funeral home. And we had a backyard with these little trails in it, and the trail went to the back, and you could see right there where they would pull the hearse around and pull the bodies out and prep them for funerals. And the whole entire time is I'm just waiting for the tall man to come out and, pick up the whole casket and just throw it in there, and these little dwarf things to be running around. That's all I could ever think, because at that point in time, you see things like that. That's all I saw that had to do with hearses at the time, besides, Ecto-1 and Ghostbusters, but was the hearse from this movie.
Yeah.
It was just terrifying. And it's still, I'm in my 40s today, and it's still terrifying. So, but that's my thing. I know it's a little long-winded, but I had to tell the story because I've told this story many times. Josh has heard it, and other friends of mine that are into horror movies. But yeah, this movie I would have to say is one of the first horror movies that actually scared me to the point to where in real life it got to me. Not just at home in bed, you think the boogeyman in the corner, like it's almost daylight going into dark, and you're having the moment like from the movie. Yeah. Of being chased by a hearse. It's not really chasing you, but you think you're being chased.
Right.
That's my experience with Phantasm, not just the movie, but being actually terrified in real life. So.
Well, let's get into it. Phantasm was released March 28th, 1979, directed by Don Coscarelli. I hope we're saying that right. He was coming off of a couple of movies, Jim the World's Greatest, and a movie called Kenny and Company. He would go on to do Beastmaster. Another
love
one of
that
Jason's
movie,
favorite.
Dude. Man, I love. We're going to talk Beastmaster.
He did Bubba Hotep, and the more recent John Dies at the End, along with all the other Phantasm sequels, which you don't really see that nowadays. The director sticking with the.
I think he did 1 through 4, and he co-produced the 5th one.
He's been with it for most of his career,
the whole run. Yeah, the whole run.
And this was a independent film. Very much so like Halloween. It had a budget of about $300,000, and ended up doing a box office of about 12 million. So it definitely succeeded.
Great turnaround. It wasn't Halloween numbers in the hundreds of millions, but
Right.
12 million out of 300,000. Yeah, I'm great. I'm good. Let's make another one.
So around this time, 1979, it would have been released amongst the likes of The Warriors, Buck Rogers, Tourist Trap, which is another pretty creepy horror movie,
Yeah.
and The China Syndrome. So we're just going to get right into it. This movie throws you right in the shit.
I mean,
We're just following a dude in a grave, a dude and his chick, and walking through a graveyard. Pretty, classy place to get laid. And all of a sudden, this lady starts taking her top off and becomes an old creepy dude.
that's such a turn off at that moment. It's the whole, Roseanne Barr thing. Everything just kind of goes.
Yeah.
But at this time, he's already been stabbed.
Right. So that was jarring enough for me just watching this, a couple of times. It's like, whoa, I didn't even remember that happening from the first time I watched it. So,
yeah, because we get to see the death of Tommy, which is a family friend of our cast we're going to meet here in a minute. I don't know if he was actually like part of the family or just a good friend.
Yeah, I think it was just a good friend of theirs.
Yeah, but what a way to go out. I mean, you're making out with a hot blonde, and I mean, you die, but the problem is you're stabbed and you're slowly dying, and then you look up and it's this ugly, creepy old man over the top of you.
Which, I mean, that really kind of puts Tall Man in another whole category of his own, because he's seducing guys and you don't see him go after women in this. So it's like, what is this guy's deal? But he's a good friend of our main characters from the movie, Mike and Jody. Mike is younger. Jody is the older brother, and he's taking care of Mike because his parents died in was it a car accident?
I think so. I think it was, they died in a car accident, because we meet, like you said, Mike, Jody, we meet Reggie too.
Yep. Ice cream guy.
Ice cream guy with the ponytail. Yeah, he's great, dude. After, they're out there talking because they didn't want to bring Mike to it because it was, I guess it was still too soon after his parents had died.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to bring you there. And that's when we later, the Jody and Reggie talking, and then we see Mike riding his dirt bike through there. But, they walk into that mausoleum.
Yeah.
They're having
that mausoleum. I mean, even for nowadays, it looks awesome. It's a great setting. And I found out that all that was not stone. It was just plywood, a built set that they draped or covered with like a sticky back covering. Yeah. But it looks like it could be a marble mausoleum. I mean, it's a really cool set.
Just the whole thing. And I think what it was is the director, Coscarelli, said that's all modeled after a dream he had.
Yeah.
Like the white walls with the red curtains.
And even the sphere.
The sphere. Yeah, that all came to him like in a dream. And that's why he like pretty much begged everybody for money to get this movie made.
Yeah.
So he ended up doing all the work pretty much himself.
Right.
Editing, writing, co-producing. He even did the camera work.
But it does have, it's kind of a weird camera movement throughout all of this, because you're following Jody through this mausoleum, and he's just kind of wandering around. And I'm assuming we're supposed to know that he's there for the funeral for Tommy. Yeah. But he's just wandering around like this place is a maze. And then we get our first little peek at Angus, who plays the tall man. And it's just our first, you saw his face in the graveyard. Now you see him here. And I got a little clip of what he says to Mike or to Jody.
Dude, it's still creepy to this day.
Ooh. The funeral is about to begin, sir.
Sir.
Sir. That raspy boy. And even the clip doesn't do it justice, because if you're listening to it,
you have to see his face, because like one of his eyes is all squinty, and it's like,
and he's got a little more bass in his voice if you listen to it on like your surround sound or something. And it's like, but when that happens, that's almost like a 1979 jump scare.
Yeah,
because Jody is sitting there looking at the I guess the little memorials for everybody. I think maybe he was looking for his parents. That's what I'm thinking. Maybe he was going to, because they're about to have a funeral for Tommy.
Yeah.
So he's not in there.
Right.
Almost wondering if he was walking around going to pay respects to his parents. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's why he was walking through there. But he's concentrating. Then we get that boom, the hand on the shoulder. Mm-hmm. And then, like what we just said, he said, the funeral is about to begin.
Right.
Like, oh. okay, I'm a child. I now don't want a creepy old man to ever touch me on the shoulder ever in a funeral home.
But we brought up Mikey, and he's out in the cemetery just kind of sneaking around. And Mikey is a little freaking sneaker.
Yeah, this whole movie,
he
dude.
just follows people, or like he is like studying to be a serial killer or some shit. He is just following people this whole time, being sneaky. He should.
Maybe he wants to be a ninja.
Yeah, maybe a ninja.
Know.
Well, I don't know if he doesn't have skills because he wasn't able to. The Jawa dwarf people seem to have more Jedi skills than he does. But I love that you just catch these little glimpses of things moving behind the headstones and whatnot. And I also want to. We kind of talked before we started recording a little bit about the score for this. It's good. It's creepy. It's moody. It sets the tone for the movie, but it's definitely pulling some influence from a few different places.
It definitely has a heavy like Exorcist feel with a little bit of Carpenter. I mean, it did come out a year after Halloween, and I mean, you could hear a little bit of the synthesizer in it, but it does have. I mean, I don't know. Do you agree that it has more of that Exorcist piano feel? Well,
even if you wouldn't have said anything to me about what you thought it sounded like, I would have said Exorcist all day.
Yeah, that's a definite.
It doesn't. You know, the thing that stands out about Halloween is it has that weird 5/4 time signature. So even though it's a synthesizer, it has its own thing that hasn't really been replicated, in my opinion.
No.
But this one, you can see that whoever did the score for this was pulling, a little bit of reference from that. And synthesizers probably were becoming a thing to use. And it's cheap. You don't have to worry about hiring an orchestra to do a score or anything like that. So
the music was done by Fred Myron, but he did Soylent Green too.
See, I haven't seen that movie.
Yeah, I mean,
what? You haven't seen the movie?
What is Soylent Green, Josh?
Well, here's the thing about some. I'm going to go off on a little tangent here. Here's the thing about some of the older movies that I haven't seen is I've seen and heard so much about them at this point that it's hard for me to watch them without knowing. I mean, like I know what happens in a lot of, like I know Soylent Green is people, so it kind of ruins the perspective of watching the movie. It's why I've never gone back and watched the original Planet of the Apes. I to this day have never seen. Yeah.
What? You haven't seen the movie?
I have not seen the original Planet of the Apes, but it's because I know what happens.
Yeah.
If I had never seen it and no one had, it wasn't so big in pop culture that the ending has been ruined for almost 40 years now. Like, I probably would have been a lot more apt to watch it. But when you find out how something is, you tend to have a different opinion, or you just avoid it altogether because you know what happens. So that's kind of the same thing with Soylent Green for me. Is I know what the ending of that movie is, so it
the
ruins
twist
it for me. Yeah.
But at least we know that he went on to do other things other than this. So
yeah.
It's creepy. I love the music. I mean, I have it notated in a few times. It's just like the music kicks in at a perfect timing with that creepy.
It definitely helps set the vibe for this movie. It keeps it creepy, and it kind of fills in a little bit where some maybe not so great scenes are. So the score helps drive it a little bit.
But like you said, we go through when Mike's sneaking around, he's got his binoculars, and we get the first hint that there's something off about the tall man.
Yeah. He sees,
they don't call him the tall man, but that's what he basically is. That's always ever referred to as.
They refer to him as the tall guy or the tall man or something later in the movie, but that's just kind of the name that stuck with that character. But yeah, he sees that guy moving around and fucking lifts
a whole
casket by himself, puts it in the back of a car, and that's enough for 10-year-old or 13-year-old or however old Mike is to go, that's not right. How the hell's that guy doing that?
Yeah, he just watched Jody and all them be the pallbearers, and there was 3 or 4 guys on each side.
Yeah.
Because later he brings that up to Mike, brings it to Jody, and he says, "Dude, that casket had to weigh every bit of 500 pounds."
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. He says it later.
Yeah, and Tall Man just like picks it up like he's, taking groceries or a laundry basket, and just throws it in the back of the hearse. And
Right.
You're like, oh, something's a little off right here.
But I definitely see how this movie can stick with you when you've seen it back as a child, because this movie does what a lot of horror movies did back then, and it throws you into the spot of a child. You're following, this young kid this whole movie, so you're easily able to put yourself in his shoes. And that's why, that whole story you told at the beginning of the podcast probably sticks with you, is because you're probably right around the same age he was.
Yeah,
and
probably pretty close.
Experience and all that stuff. That's why I think, even though I did enjoy this time much more than the first time I watched it. The first time I watched it, I was just sort of like, meh. But that's because I didn't see it as a kid. Watching it now, I definitely see the merit in this movie. It has its problems, like most movies do. But this is definitely a creepy ass movie, and I think it's a good example of one of those movies that's got, you're watching it from the kid's perspective, so it's easy to kind of get creeped out with what's going on in it.
Especially like you said, when I was close to that age, you're like, I'm living Mike right now. I'm riding through the cemetery and there's a hearse, and that's all you picture is the scenes later in this movie where the hearse is chasing him. So
I want to bring up a scene that comes along here around this time where we're at, and this is when what's the ice cream guy's name? Reggie pulls up. Mike's jamming on guitar on the front porch, and Reggie just walks up with an acoustic, and they start having a front porch jam. And you and I are both musicians. We've played music in multiple bands together and other bands, and we've been playing music for a long time. So one of the things that irks us about movies where you have a musical performance is it's pretty easy to point out when people aren't playing their instruments. And we even just discussed this on Back to the Future's episode about how that's definitely not Michael J. Fox singing Johnny Be Good.
Yeah.
But this scene surprised me because at first when you walk up, Jody seems like he's just noodling, and it's going to be one of those where they just overdub some stuff of this guy playing guitar. But then
it's like we want you to think this guy's hip and cool, because I think that's what they're trying to think, is that he's he's a musician, like, because he's back in town, but he doesn't want to be there.
Right.
Like, this is what he maybe does as a profession. He's a musician.
Right. Reggie comes up with his acoustic, and then they start having a jam, and Reggie is wailing on that acoustic, man, like he's actually playing that thing.
Yeah.
And
it definitely looks real to me.
Yeah. I mean, if they did overdubs on that, it was precise and excellent. So it convinced me. I was like, well, maybe they really did have a nice little jam right there, because convincingly enough, Reggie looks like he's playing that.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty cool. Now, this is the other thing I want to say about Jody is he's kind of in a rough position because the parents are gone. He's got a younger brother, and he even says it to, I think, Reggie, that, he's not, he doesn't really know what to do. He doesn't really want to be stuck here taking care of Jody or Mike. I get their two names mixed up so bad.
Jody doesn't want to take care of Mike.
Mike looks like a Jody, and Jody looks like a Mike, so I keep getting them confused.
You would think the younger, the little brother would be the Jody,
right,
and the older brother would be the big strong Mike. But the one thing we passed by this, because I want to bring this up to my car people, because the car actually, I don't know if it's the same as that car, but it carries on through the sequels. That freaking Barracuda 440.
I was going to let you get to this, because you're definitely the car guy. I know nothing about cars.
That freaking car is so sweet. The first time you hear it coming down the road, and it was funny, you're like, man, Jody's got this freaking badass muscle car. It sounds great. But when they pull up, Mike's driving.
Yeah.
And then he hops out, and he's like, dude, I think I need to adjust the header a little bit. And you're like, this little boy has got some skills. He's trying to tell his big brother the car's off a little bit. Let me hop under the, and he does. He hops under there and he starts working on the car. Later, he's working on the car again, his brother's car.
Yeah.
Trying to get it going. But, dude, that car is so sweet.
I was surprised at how many times he was driving the car, or Jody threw the keys to him to drive it off somewhere. And, he's working on it throughout the movie. I mean, it definitely does a lot to set you up for, Mike is not a stupid kid.
Yeah. Which also makes me believe the twists we find at the end of the movie, it kind of makes some sense.
You could make an argument there.
Yeah,
I get that.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people seen this movie, and it took me a few times to realize how the way the movie ended. as a kid because I didn't pay attention. I was just too busy being scared. But as an adult, you're like, oh, okay, this might make a little sense now. So, but that car is, I mean, shoot, like at an auction, a car in that condition nowadays, shoot, that's like $100,000 car.
Yeah.
I mean, it is beautiful. I mean, a big 440 and a Barracuda. Oh, I'd kill for that car. I'm a car guy. I'm a Mustang guy, but I love my Mopar too. And I drool over that car every time I hear it and see it on the screen. Oh, it's so good. But moving on, I'm going to clean myself up now. So.
Well, speaking of the car, you got Jody going to the bar to have a few drinks, and
and Mike's following him again.
Mike, I got it in my notes here. Mike is a creepy creeper. Just he follows that dude everywhere. So you can really see that this kid just needs something to do. But he picks up the same girl that we saw in the beginning, and I even wrote in my notes. I was like, "Is this the same girl?" Because I was kind of half paying attention a little bit at that point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, he picks up the same girl. She takes him to the same place, and you know, it builds some tension because this girl's bad news, and we don't want our our guy we're following through this movie to be effed up, but Mike creeping on him is ultimately what keeps him from being killed in the beginning anyway. But he's hiding in the bushes, watching his brother about to get lucky on a grave, and he's
the Jawa dwarves.
And is that where you see the Jawas come in?
Yeah, I mean, I know they're not Jawas, but
they damn sure look like Jawas.
They look like Jawas, and then they have that voice.
Yeah,
but that's what I mean. I know they just refer to them as dwarves or whatever, but yeah, he keeps because it's in the shadows in the bushes. Which as a young kid, Mike got a good show. I mean, let's see a nice set of boobs there.
Yeah,
you see in the shadows there he keeps hearing a noise, and all of a sudden it starts moving toward him, and then Mike bolts out of the bushes and it was funny. It's not just running away; he runs right past his brother mid coitus.
Yeah, he screams and it's very comedic the way it's played, and I don't know if they were mid coitus. I mean, that was pretty fast if it was, but I mean they've got their clothes off, and
I mean as Jenny would say, that's how it happens in the horror movies anyway. The girl never gets what she wants. So, I mean, that might have been over and done. But, I mean, the girl had his pants down, so you figured they were at least
but he runs off with her panties in his mouth. And he doesn't really seem to be very concerned at all about leaving a naked woman on a grave in the middle of a graveyard. Oh, that's my brother. I got to go find out what's going on. And just leaves her there. Like, if that girl wasn't actually the tall man, I would have left too, because I would have been like, this dude just left me here in a graveyard. Fuck this guy. And he took my underwear. What a jerk.
I was like, those were my good underwear. That's my bar underwear, man. Come on. But yeah, I mean, just that screaming flyby. I mean, I laugh every time I see that part. Most people are scared because Mike's scared, but it's funny. Because there's a couple of moments that him and his brother have where you think it's scary, but they have these little funny little moments for just a second. And you're like, oh, they throw a little bit of humor in there.
Of course, Jody doesn't believe anything as Mike's saying. It's a kid with kids' imaginations running wild, and they leave.
But then we get home. Yeah, and this is a scene that you were talking about earlier before we started. Of Mike laying in bed, he's all safe.
Yeah, this is the point of the movie where I was like, okay, this movie's got my attention. Because there's this scene where Mike is dreaming. He's dreaming of all kinds of stuff, but he's in this graveyard. I'm going to get to the clip here, and we're going to play this and kind of comment on it.
Oh, I'm home safe, just lying in my bed.
Yeah.
Dreaming of the boobs I just saw.
The way the shadow and the pillow is, it almost looks like he's got his arms behind his head.
Yeah.
But he's
they're not on his they're on his head, but not that one. He's thinking of boobs right now, bro.
Well, he's not going to be in a minute.
Nope.
So when this right here, it cuts to another shot of him, and you pan up, and it's got the tall man standing right above his headboard.
Yeah.
Like I said, man, I didn't see this movie when I was a kid. And if I would have, that would have freaked me the fuck out. But even as an adult, I was like, that's fucking freaky.
Yeah, I mean, the way that the camera work was great because it's in the bedroom and then it turns and you think they're just at the foot of the bed looking up because you remember he had that dark shadow behind the pillow.
Yeah.
And then and all of a sudden, then it's the wide shot comes out and there's a tall man. It looks like his hands are on a headstone standing over the top of Mike. And then, like you said, the zombies or the creatures jump out and we're like trying to rip him apart on the bed. Yeah, that's a pretty scary thing when you're a kid watching that. I mean, I know you saw it as later, but I mean, when I was a kid, yeah, that was another like kind of early days jump scare because you just think that something's going to happen all of a sudden.
Well, I think that moment's actually on like top scariest moments of all time that some people have done or whatnot. And even for not seeing this movie as a kid, but having a love for horror movies and watching it later in life, I think that deserves to be on there, no doubt, because that is a good looking scene, especially for a movie that was made as cheaply as this was.
No. Oh, then after that, we have the dream of the tall man. Then was it the next day? I guess Mike's in town following his brother again because his brother goes back to check to see what happened to the girl at the bar because we see the car right there at the end of that clip. The car's pulling up at the bar, but Mike's walking through town, and here comes the tall man, slow motion, walking up the sidewalk. Daylight in town with the cars going by, and is it the dream sequence or not? We don't know, but. I mean, it's like regular every day. And then I just thought it was weird as the tall man stops and he kind of looks at Mike, but he's not looking at Mike. But Reggie's there, the ice cream man, standing in front of him.
Yeah. And
you see the tall man like breathing in, like there's something that has attention. You kind of see him look at Reggie.
Yeah. And
you like, there's something. I mean, we already know there's something off about the tall man. I mean, he could pick up a casket like a rag doll. So we're like, is Reggie like his next target is what you start to think because he's like breathing in his essence of like, oh, you smell good, or is that just sherbet I'm smelling? I don't know.
Honestly, that scene was the amount of dry ice and smoke that comes out of the back of that ice cream truck. Like that was one of those things where maybe as a kid you saw it differently, but I saw that and I was like, oh my God, that was a bit of overkill.
Yeah, that's a lot of cold ice cream right there. It was a warm day, but no, it's not that warm. Everybody's wearing jackets.
But that's what Tall Man was doing is he was just breathing in the chocolate fudge. He wanted to get him some of that ice cream cone.
He wants some of the Tutti Frutti. He wants some Tutti Frutti. But yeah, and then after that we get back to Mike working on the CUDA again.
Yeah,
he's in the garage.
Now is this when he's under the car?
He's under the car.
Car starts shaking.
Yeah, it's like you see something going on because Mike's under the car. He hears noises, and then we see feet run by, and it looks like the feet of the dwarf again.
Yeah.
And he's under the car, and the car starts shaking a little bit.
And he stays under the car like a fucking moron.
Yeah, this is what's crazy. All right, I worked on cars with my grandpa and my stepdad as a kid. And the first thing, I mean, because they're doing old school jacks here, the old fender jacks where you shove them up under the bumper, and it's, kick, and it just rips up the back of the car, which are not safe because they tip easily.
Right.
And there's no jack stands under the car to keep it from falling. But the first thing this kid does is the car starts shaking and he gets himself in a little ball almost or a straight line under the car. And I'm like, no, you get out from under the fucking car.
First time a car shakes, dude, you get out from under it.
Yeah, I'm like, come on.
And then whatever is in the garage fucking drops the car.
Yeah, the whole car, boom. Which is
definitely trickery because it would have flattened him.
Yeah, because that's where I'm calling BS on this because CUDA set low to the ground.
Yeah.
And he's turned sideways. He just got squished. But here he is under the car. Looks like he's squished. And he grabs a hammer because he hears things. And then a foot. And we get whack.
Right on the toe.
Hammer.
Yeah.
And there's your other comedy moment. It was like so like Three Stooges.
Yeah.
Of the whack and then the look of the brother's face going, with the hat on. I'm like, this is so like Larry Moe and Curly moment. But he slides out from under the car.
Yeah.
Just
like nothing happened.
And I'm like, no, dude, you're going to the ER. You got at least a broken shoulder, maybe a ruptured spleen, something.
So he tells Mike that something was in. Or he tells, God damn it, I'm doing it again. He tells Jody that something was in the garage. Jody is still doing this whole "you're a stupid kid" act. It's enough to make Mikey strap a knife around his ankle and go break into this fucking funeral.
Yeah, and it's not even like a knife; it's a dagger.
Dude, it takes up his whole calf.
It goes from like his ankle to his knee.
Yeah, like this kid is. We'll talk about this shortly too, but this kid has got weapons out the wazoo.
The kid's obviously scared. Well, we missed a whole second earlier when he went to the palm reader and she said, "Fear is the killer," and then she tried to tell him, "Don't be scared. The fear will kill you."
Yeah.
Okay. It is. Go. What you got?
Well, you brought up a good point because we skipped completely over the fortune teller
palm
business.
reading. Yeah,
and it seems really out of place. I don't really know. Again, maybe this is a part where I was paying half attention or something, but it didn't seem like that really led anywhere. I mean, I do think he has a flashback to it later about something she says to him, which could be what you just mentioned. But
yeah, it's fear is the killer because when he's there, obviously he goes there regularly because the daughter or the granddaughter answers the door and is like, "Hey, Michael."
Yeah.
And she lets him in and they talk. But the whole thing is he just wanted to ask the palm reader, is Jody going to leave?
Yeah.
That's what he's scared of. And then that little black box appears magically.
Yeah.
Doesn't come and then he puts his hand in it. And that's what she says is when he starts to realize to not be scared, the box stopped moving and it let him go.
Yeah.
So that's the whole thing of this whole movie is fear.
Right.
If fear gives other things power over you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And now he's like, hell no, I'm going to go to Morningside and I'm going to go kick the window in and I'm going to break into the damn place.
Yeah. But so what has he seen so far that has made him completely okay with breaking and entering and destruction of property?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, literally, like, did all of a sudden he said, "I'm fucking tired of being scared. I'm not letting the fear take over. I'm just going to go straight there. I'm going to handle this on my own."
Yeah. This does lead to a good scene in the movie because I love the shot of him walking through the aisle of caskets, the open caskets and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
That's really cool and creepy. And then he ends up in the mausoleum.
Yeah, when he's hiding in the casket, because, I mean, you honestly know something's up because all the lids are open. And then you got the one that's not, which he stuck his lighter in there so it wouldn't close.
Right.
And caretaker walks up, and then you see the tall man walk in, and then they leave. And then you go to the part where Mike is walking around the mausoleum area, and then you get the first shot of the flying balls or spheres, whatever you want to call them.
And again, me being the newcomer to this, and what I was reading about it, they call it the Sentinel Sphere.
Yeah, it's like a Sentinel Sphere. Or
they don't.
Like that.
They don't do any explanations of it in this whatsoever.
Not in this one. They talk about them in the sequels.
Yeah. I mean, the way they go with this, the way they go with the sphere in this, it's really just. It seems to be the instrument of destruction that the tall man controls. I mean, that's the only thing you can really kind of put together from it is he's controlling it somehow.
Yeah, and but the thing is flying through the air, and you say, "Oh, look, it's huge!" And the way it moves, dude, the camera works really great for 1979.
I read that they filmed the way they did that is they got a baseball pitcher. He would throw the sphere like onto the camera shot.
Yeah,
and then they would just print it backwards, and that's how they got the flying shots.
Oh, that's pretty cool. See, I did not know that. I didn't get that in my notes. Josh, gold star for you for notes.
Did. Yep.
But that, I mean, and the caretaker has Mike, which he looks kind of creepy too. Like he might be undead. His face is very.
He looks a little. He looks a little bit like the tall man.
Yeah, he's like zombie looking.
Yeah.
But obviously not decaying. But as the sphere is flying toward him, all of a sudden you see the blades which is like an iconic scene that happens in all of them.
Which is just
the blades coming out.
Which is really enough because you're like, oh shit! But then it attaches itself to his head. And a damn drill bit comes out of it and starts drilling into his forehead.
Yeah, and then we get not only just that. I mean, we would have the drill bit with the blood pouring. No, it's sucking it out of a hole and shooting it across the room.
But did you notice
everywhere?
Mike is watching all of this happen to this guy, and you're watching from his perspective, which is behind the guy. Like he's watching this guy like from a front. So the ball would be spitting blood out the back of it and getting everywhere, but he falls to the ground, and you see Mike looking at him, and there's no blood anywhere to be found on the floor.
Somebody missed that in the edit room.
Yeah. That was something I noticed right off the bat. I was like, that thing was just spraying a lot of blood, and there's no blood on the floor. This is a little bit of a mishap. While there's no blood on the ground, when Mike is watching him, there is some substance coming from him. Are we meant to believe that he peed himself as he was dying? Because that's what it looked like to me. If you go back and watch the scene again, he's exuding a liquid, and it's not blood.
Oh, okay. All right,
so
baby.
I wrote that down, and but
yeah, and then we get another one with the tall man and Mike, because he's walking through, and then the tall man comes around the corner, and they're looking at each other, and you're like, I mean, as a kid, I'm like, oh shit, dude, that's the tall man. What is Mike gonna do? And they get up next to each other, and they're walking towards, and then Mike takes, dude, even Angus Scrimm runs scary.
Yeah.
Like, I would be terrified to look behind me and see this man chasing me.
I'm scared of old men that run.
It's a new phobia, old men that run. And he comes through, and I mean, he's right behind Mike, and he goes to slam the door to the.
This is another thing I caught too. Is he reaches out?
Yes,
and
he reached out, but when he shut the door, there's no hand. But then,
and then you look, it pans over, and you see his fingers just wiggling about. This was cool. I like the way they did this.
And then I think he takes a knife and cuts his fingers off.
Well, he's got his knife, and he chops all of his fingers off.
Yeah, and then the door shuts, and then the fingers are on the ground
moving.
But the main part, his blood is yellow.
Yeah,
and right then and there, I mean, you thought that something was weird. Okay, the man bleeds yellow.
Yeah,
there's something severely off about this guy.
Well,
but even there's something off with Mike, because what does he do?
He
picks up a finger,
but
and sticks it in his jacket.
You would too. I mean, you've got your brother not believing what you're telling him, so you got to have something for proof. I can understand why he took the finger. I actually wrote it down as where did I write it here? I wrote it down as the "Okay, I believe you" finger. Because when he shows it to Jody, Jody's like, okay, we got to do something about this.
Well, that's the thing. Jody comes down the stair because it shoots to Mike's already back home, and he's there with the box, and he's got the shotgun laying on him, and he's like asleep.
Yeah.
And Jody comes out, and he like unloads the shotgun, and then he has to tell him about. That's the first time Mike tells him about the tall man picking up the casket, and then he showed the whole finger to him, and he's like, yeah, we got to go to that, and then we're going to go to the police. I got it. And then he sends Mike to go get the finger, and he opens the box, and we get our first glimpse of the little fly.
Now
it looks like a mix between a housefly and a critter from Critters.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Now,
but it's funny because it jumps out of the box, and Mike said earlier, and another of our funny moments, it's crawling on his head and his hair. Like,
I will go ahead and say, for a $300,000 budget, this movie has a lot of things that it does well and it does right. They should have cut this. They should have cut this scene out of the movie because
they
it's
should have come up with something better than an angry fly.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that, remember maggots become flies.
Yeah.
Flies, I don't know. Maybe that was a correlation. I don't know what he was remember, this is all from the director's dream.
Well, I know I know that J.J. Abrams has a soft spot for this movie. And
he loves it.
And the one that I watched was he did a remaster. His company, Bad Robot,
what I watched.
Did a remaster.
I watched the remaster.
It looks great. It looks awesome. I mean, for a movie from '79, the remastering and everything looks great. The picture looks good. And they said that he even went in and beefed up some of the effects that they did in the movie because they couldn't afford to do it the way they wanted to back then.
Yeah.
But there's nothing he could have done to help this scene. This scene's really bad.
What did we always say when we were writing music? You can't polish a turd.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's still a turd. So they just Abrams just had to go with what he had. The rest of the movie is great, but he couldn't go in there and do old school Star Wars stuff and actually insert some digital effects in there. I think he was trying to keep it as original as he could.
And the overacting when they've got it under the jacket and they're just running down the stairs and through the house with it is, I mean, this is by far the weakest point of Phantasm for me. So is it after this where we get the gun speech?
Yeah, because they got through all that, and remember they thought they had killed it, and I think it wasn't dead because then Reggie shows up and it gets out loose again. Then they finally kill it in the garbage disposal. But this is where we get the big brother
Now,
let me tell you how adult life is with a gun.
So you're Mr. Note Taker. How many pages of notes do you have on this movie? Like 17?
Oh, probably like 17, 19, 25. I don't know.
Did you write down the dialogue here? Because I unfortunately wasn't able to pull it.
Yeah, I wrote the majority of it, and here this will give the listeners a gist of it if you haven't seen the movie or if you did and you forgot about this. But don't point a gun at a man unless you intend to shoot. Don't shoot a man unless you plan to kill. Warning shots are bullshit. And I'm like, damn, Jody.
That is where I lost it. Literally, when this scene happened and he starts to going through that speech, I laughed out loud in the middle of the room. I was, as soon as he said, "Don't ever fire warning shots. Warning shots are bullshit." I was like, it struck me as so funny.
And that's when Jody takes off. He's going to go to Morningside and take care of things himself. He leaves Mike at home. He's like, "Hey, I'm going to be the big brother." We go up there. And again, like the whole entire time, why does everybody want to keep going back to this creepy cemetery? I mean, I understand it's the point of the movie, but it's to stay away from the creepy cemetery by yourself, of all things. And he goes inside. He goes through because Mike told him that he broke the window.
Yeah.
So he's telling him how to get back inside there. As Jody's looking around, the angry Jawa attacks from above. It's sitting right behind him, in the shadows, just waiting for him.
That's the first time I wrote Jawa attack.
Dude, that's what I wrote. It's a Jawa, but that's what they reminded me of, is like evil Jawas. They dress just like them.
Yeah. Now I'm going to move on to this fight with the Jawa. Jody just gave this big speech about, if you're going to fire a gun, you're going to do this. Well, all this about like killing people and shooting people. He doesn't say anything about aiming or how to use a gun properly, because he turns that gun damn near on himself. He would have shot himself. That was another moment when I laughed out loud. I was like, holy shit. He just gave this whole speech on firing a gun and could have killed himself. I thought that was pretty damn funny.
Well, he did shoot him. He gets out, and then the hearse starts chasing him down.
Yeah.
The hearse goes by Jody. Well, then all of a sudden, the CUDA pulls up.
Right.
And he doesn't know who's in, because he's like hollering at the car because nobody's getting out of the car. And then he opens the door, and it's Mike. Mike's in the CUDA. Okay. Well, that's when they leave, and the hearse chases them down.
Okay.
They're shooting at the hearse. They realize nobody's driving. They look over.
Right. The hearse crashes. I remember this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because Jody shoots the engine, because he's the, best crack shot with a gun ever. He's got awesome gun skills. They get to the car and realize it was one of the dwarves driving the car because a branch had went through it. But this is when you realize what they're kind of doing to how the dwarves come to be, because the dwarf has the face of Tommy.
Right. This is where this, okay, I meant to mention this earlier, but you've got Tall Man who's creepy enough in himself, and there's a mystery there. Then you introduce these little Jawas running around the whole movie, which is another creepy-ass thing that to have in the woods or ducking behind headstones and whatnot. It's another creepy aspect to have. And then you find out, oh, this is the guy that died in the beginning. Mm-hmm. And why is he a little person now?
Which we find that out.
And we'll get to that too. But that's when you start getting this whole, it's like, what is going on in this damn movie I'm watching?
It's like, what kind of drugs were they on? And can I please have some?
I do want to say the music that's playing during the car chase, it's like this crazy piano piece.
Yeah.
It's bad. Like it doesn't fit that scene at all. Like I wrote it down in my notes. I was like, this piano music during the car scene is not good.
Yeah, it doesn't really, I mean, for all the other creepy music we get through the whole thing, other than, and when they're in the bar and it sounds like they're just playing some 1970s porn music.
Yeah.
It's like they went and got Debbie Does Dallas and just do the music in it at the bar scene. But yeah, that scene is just really, it doesn't fit the rest of it.
No.
It's just because the rest of it fits where it needs to be. But they get the dwarf and they get hold of Reggie. They put it in the back of Reggie's ice cream truck to keep it on ice. Mm-hmm. They take Mike to, I think it says it's his aunt. Mm-hmm. They own the antique store. Well, while Mike is walking around the antique store, he finds a shelf, like a thing that's open, and it's creepy antique store, especially with what Mike's been dealing with through most of the movie. he finds these pictures. Well, then he finds a picture, and it's the picture of the tall man driving an old horse-drawn hearse. And then it turns and looks at him. Yeah. Well, Jody goes back home because Reggie's driving the truck. I guess the dwarf wakes up, and that's all. And then it's a cutaway.
Right.
Then we get another scene like Mike's where it's Jody at the house, and he's like laying in the chair, and he kind of drifts off to sleep. Like
and this is when he has his dream sequence.
Yeah, he has his dream sequence with the tall man and the freaking arms coming out of the mausoleum door and grabbing him, and then he wakes up.
That's a cool scene too. I like that.
Yeah, it's again those two little dream sequences are actually very well shot. I mean, they work well. It's like they just put it in the movie. It just works good because it basically shows you that not only Mike is, it can only just happen to Mike. It's even happening to his older brother.
Yeah,
that the tall man can get you. But then we find out Reggie's truck has been wrecked. They check it, and you can see all the yellow blood on the inside. So I guess the dwarves bleed yellow blood. So that's when you start getting a correlation of the tall man with this dwarves. They bleed the same blood. So nobody makes me bleed my own blood.
Nobody.
But and while they're sitting there, because that's the reason they see Reggie's truck is because Mike had hollered at them because he saw the picture of tall man for his aunt and all them to take him to Jody.
Yeah.
They find the truck, and as they're sitting there and he sees that the dwarf is gone, Mike hops in the car and he's like, shut the doors, let's go. And then you see the door starting to rattle, the car is moving around, and she opens the damn door after Mike's telling her not to, and then there are the doors, and the doors pile into the car and they're attacking her. And this is kind of cool is they throw Mike out the back window of the bug. Here we are, more bugs in horror movies.
I couldn't figure out if Mike got up the nerve to jump out the back window or if they tossed him out the back window.
I think they threw him out.
Not the last back window he'll go out of in this movie, by the way.
A lot of glass was used in this movie.
Yeah.
And asking Josh, I'm pretty sure you ain't going to throw somebody out the back glass of a car, not even a Volkswagen.
Nah.
So,
well, maybe back then, but
it was. I thought it's not funny, but it's funny to me. Is the little dwarves just take off in the Volkswagen with the girls? One hops in the driver's seat.
Ding, ding.
We're driving.
Ding, 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 ding.
But they just take off with the girls. So the girls have been now captured by the tall man, and they're driving.
And we don't ever see them again, do we? Or to presume?
No.
Dead?
Well, we get a brief description of what happens later, because Reggie has something to do with it.
Oh yeah, I remember. Okay.
Yeah, but that's the thing is, the little dwarves drive through town with two blondes in a Volkswagen. They're hitting the local Dairy Queen. Everybody's getting a blizzard, and then we're going to go see the tall man. That's what's really going on.
Yeah.
Right there. So I mean,
then we get another scene with Jody and Mike at the house, and Jody doesn't want Mike to go again.
Carries him upstairs, just grabs and picks his little brother
and
up.
Puts it. Okay, this really bothered me. Okay,
dude,
you know what I'm going to say.
Yes, I know where you're going with this, man.
The screwdriver to keep him in the. This fucking bothers me. Is that what you thought I was going to say?
Yeah.
Okay. There's another thing that bothers me too. But
oh yeah.
The screwdriver in the door, I was like, come on. This is like what you would see in Looney Tunes. It's like somebody puts something in somebody's way to keep them from going somewhere, and then they come up and open the door inwards, and that's all the kid had to do was open his door.
Yeah, because the door opens inward, and he shoved the screwdriver in this way.
Makes no sense.
So if he opens the door to him, the screwdriver just falls.
Movie logic at work, ladies and gentlemen.
Now, if the door opened outward, the screwdriver would wedge itself into the door frame.
But from earlier with his encounter with the shotgun, he has a shotgun shell in his pocket.
And he's sitting there playing with it on his desk.
This seems safe.
Yeah, and it was funny. The kid happens to have a tack and a hammer.
He would have blown his fucking arm off.
Yeah. But if you have not seen this movie, I'm telling you that this was
that is some MacGyver shit.
This is how they come up with the show MacGyver. Was Mike? I swear, because he grabs a shotgun shell, and don't try this at home if you're
because it won't work.
It won't work, and you're going to lose a body part.
Yeah.
And he shoves the pin into the primer.
Yep.
Right there at the top of the shotgun shell, and gets it, and then he tapes it to the head of the gun because it's basically the hammer is the hammer like on a gun. You know, it comes forward, it hits in the shotgun, and he just walks up to the door and he just like leans to the side and bam, hits the door. But that's funny. It doesn't blow a hole in the door. Well, it's just you see smoke and the door opens.
Yeah, they show an outside perspective where he reaches through and pulls the screwdriver out. So it's a really badly cut scene and badly thought out.
Yeah, it's like, but yeah, the whole thing. I understand. It's a movie, and that's why we're here. We love movies, and sometimes we overthink things in movies.
Yeah,
but
sometimes they're so obvious and so ridiculous that you can't help yourself.
No, again, I'm calling bullshit.
Yeah.
I understand it's 1979 and people back then were like, dude, you could probably really do that. But nowadays there's so much stuff on YouTube and you realize you can't do that. You will die.
Yeah.
Because there's some idiot that's already done it.
So,
but he gets out of the room.
He gets out and he manages to get back to the graveyard.
Oh no, we missed the part. No, we missed it. He gets downstairs to leave and the tall man's at his front door.
That's right. That's where we get boy.
Yes.
Okay.
That's where, because he opens the door and it's boy. And again, and I've told Josh this, we've talked about it this last week leading up to this. That is just creepy. That tone and that gravel in his voice, and he does it. That's like one of the things that Angus Scrimm is known for the rest of the Phantasm movies is that.
Yeah.
Boy.
This is where, and a little behind the scenes to the show here is this is where when you've got somebody like Jason who's seen this movie multiple times throughout his childhood and it resonates with him, and you got somebody like me who is absolutely open to watching it but probably is not going to have that nostalgia. Like I had to ask Jason a little bit about some of the stuff that this movie's popular for, and in watching this movie, I would have never guessed that boy became the tagline for the character and the movie and all that stuff. Like that just doesn't seem like a thing that would be like, oh, that's your catchphrase. Like, I don't know. It was very weird to hear that was the popular thing.
It's just because I think it's just, you can't replicate it.
Yeah.
It's that thing. And that's what it is. He's always hunting the boy because when you get to the sequel, Mike is older, which we find out that they recast Mike. It's not the same Mike.
Right.
But the original comes back later. But yeah, that's what growing up, you saw the trailers for the sequels, and it always had the boy thing. And if you see somebody at like a horror movie convention, that's if they're dressed up like the tall man, they say that. So, but like I said, I know it's just one word thing, but I think it's because it was so unique to him. His voice and the way he did it, it was just synonymous with him. It's like the voice of like Freddie saying things or Doug Bradley doing Pinhead. Only that one person could say it and do it, and you knew who it was. Right. So I think that's what it is.
Well, we've got some actors nowadays that might actually. I'm going off on a different movie and a different tangent here for a second, but like the movie It. Bill Skarsgård is amazing as Pennywise, and I still think Tim Curry is great as Pennywise as well. But I can see it goes to show you that if you've got somebody that is into the part and willing to contribute in a good way, like you could tell Bill Skarsgård liked playing the role and put what he put his own spin on it, and it was good. It goes to show that it can be done with the right care for a movie.
Oh yeah, definitely can. Because I totally enjoy. You have purists, only Tim Curry can play Pennywise, and there's no arguing with it because Tim Curry is great. All the other movies he's done, he's freaking fantabulous with everything he does. But Bill Skarsgård did a great job, and maybe there is a guy out there that could do the Angus Scrimm tall man.
And that's kind of why I brought this up, is because when we first started VHS Files, we would always, our kind of thing at the end is this movie worth a rental? And with these older movies, does it need a remake or does it deserve to be remade or anything like that? And I'll go ahead and get to this now with I think Phantasm could benefit from a remake nowadays. Maybe. Just to kind of, it's one of those kind of like the It miniseries that was great in its time. People probably didn't have the respect for it they should have then. And it's not going to resonate with people now because it's slow. The acting's a little off. The effects are a little bad. And at the time, it was great for watching it as a kid, and you got your scares out of that, and it stuck with you, and you're able to hold on to that. But with someone like me, it's so obvious that the fly demon thing is a terrible puppet, and you know, is creepy as cutting off the fingers and the yellow blood and all that is. You can see that it's old makeup and it doesn't look as good as it would nowadays. The thing that I think hinders it from maybe getting a remake nowadays is recasting Angus as the tall man. He
passed away in, I think, 2016.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a mask you can put on Jason and Michael. You've got makeup you can put on Freddy. Same thing with Pinhead. Pinhead was a little more Doug Bradley because you could see his face, you could see his emotion. So, and his voice is part of the gravitas of Pinhead.
Also Robert Englund with Freddy too, because we've already had a remake.
And I mean, you've said this before. Jackie Earle Haley could absolutely do that part well if he would have had a better script or better makeup or whatever. Like that's the things that hurt that.
I'm more practical makeup, better writing. I think it would have been a better movie.
Yeah. But when you go to recast movies like this, and we've saw that they could do it with It and Bill Skarsgård. When you're casting a character, your horror hero per se is someone with a personality. That's really where you've got to find the right person to do it.
Exactly.
You know, I'm not saying Jackie Earle Haley was the wrong guy for Nightmare on Elm Street, but maybe they, you know, I can't blame that movie on him because I'm not a fan of that movie. He does the best he can with it, but I don't think he had a very good working script to go off of or anything like that.
Yeah, because I mean, me and Josh have a story. We're watching The Watchmen.
Yeah,
with Jackie Earle Haley, and the scene when he's in the food line and his character Rorschach throws that on, and that voice when he says, "I'm not locked up in here with you, you're locked in here."
Yeah,
immediately, almost during and after the movie, me and Josh had a conversation. It's like that guy could be Freddy Krueger with that voice.
Yeah, and
then later it happens, but unfortunately, bad movie.
Yeah,
but like you're saying is maybe somebody could come along and do Angus Scrimm's Tall Man justice, and it'd be great. And I almost think, you know, you're talking about if they did remake it, I think they should bring J.J. Abrams in because he's obviously a fan of the movie. Yeah. I mean, he is a fan of the original. He's the one who made the remastered. And like we were talking earlier, he even named his Star Wars character after the movie.
Yeah, Captain Phasma was named after this movie and inspired by the sphere because it's a chrome sphere.
And she's all chromed out. So, I mean, he obviously has a love for this movie, and I think maybe he could do it justice if we did a remake. But let's catch back up with Mike. And Mike has now been thrown in the back of the hearse, which is what terrified the hell out of me on my bicycles, being thrown in the hearse.
Yeah.
And
lo and behold, he jumps out another back window.
Yeah, because remember, he packed, I think that's like a 44, 45 Magnum freaking gun he's got.
Yeah.
He shoots out the back glass and then shoots through the fender well to shoot the tire out.
It's a crack shot, man.
Yeah, and I mean, dude, he's great. I mean, Jody taught him well. But I mean, even before that, I love the point when he goes up to the window and the tall man laughs at him.
Yeah.
He's like, you're not going anywhere.
Right.
No, but he gets out. He jumps out the back. The hearse crashes into the tree and explodes. Okay, tall man's dead, right?
Right.
It's over. Movie over. Mike just saved the day. Wrong.
This movie has a couple of endings, and it should only have one.
It's like a couple times. Is it over?
Yeah.
No. Is it over? No.
Because there's about halfway through the movie is when you get this whole Mike sees something, goes and tells Jody. Jody goes and does something. Then Mike follows Jody. Like it's the same scenario at the end of the movie quite a few times.
Because you go back and forth because now we finally get Jody he's already back at Morningside, the funeral home.
Yeah.
And he's checking his parents' coffin.
Yeah.
Because he wants to know, are they little dwarves walking around? And he opens it. I don't think we saw that when he originally opened it, but Mike finally makes it back there and Mike sees the coffin. Mm-hmm. And and it's empty. And I think that's when he knows, like, oh shit.
Yeah.
My mom and dad are freaking dwarves running around this whole thing. But the cool thing I liked about it is Jody said the balls flying around. We get the perspective of the flying sphere.
This just goes to show you how long Jason and I have been friends and the things we think about when we watch movies, because I have right here in my notes, the sphere, the perspective of the sphere is cool as fuck.
Yeah, that's what it's like. You actually get to see what it sees. It's like a predator look.
Yeah.
You can see, it sees in these different colors as it's flying around, and I guess so it can see people.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty bad.
But one shotgun shot to it knocks it out.
Yeah, it explodes. Boosh, glitter everywhere.
But I almost love that there's no explanation for this thing at all. It's just an instrument of destruction, and that's all you really need to know. It doesn't have to have this backstory or thing behind it. Like, I think it's just creepy enough in itself. Now, if they go on to describe it in other movies, then fine. But I like the ambiguity of it.
Yeah, they do go on later to explain to it because it has a lot to do with Jody and Mike's connection.
Yeah.
So some things happen later in the movies. But this is where they're all done. They're all together, Mike and Jody, and then Reggie shows up. And that's where we get the quick thing with Reggie. They were talking about how they got, I forgot what her name was, Sarah or something like that. And Reggie said, oh, no, I found them. And I showed them the way out along with a bunch of other girls.
Ah, okay. Yeah. I remember.
And so we get the quick, like, oh, wow, that's some good writing right there. Reggie saved all the girls.
Off screen.
But that's where we find out, everybody got saved. But the thing that they're still walking around, and you can hear it. It starts to grow. Is this noise in the background?
And they find this room,
and then when they open the door, it's like there's the noise. Yeah,
and this is where it solidifies that this is not just a horror movie; it's a fucking sci-fi movie.
It pretty much is.
Yeah, like you open and you get these drums. Well, they look like drums. It reminded me of Return of the Living Dead.
I was going to say they look like the drums from Return of the Living Dead. Yeah,
and you can see in them, and this is how they process the little Jawa Munchkin demon thing.
Yeah, because it says they're full of dwarves.
Yeah,
and we see and you see these two pillars, these big chrome pillars. Like it's and the room it's so white in there, it actually hurts your eyes.
Yeah,
I mean, like you're watching on the screen, you're like, oh my god, it's just too clean. I don't know what it is, too white. And Mike gets close, but I don't know if you notice it, but the first time he turns around, but his hand sweeps and his hand disappears.
Yeah. And then
he
flashes
realizes,
it flashes back to that point that he has with the fortune teller about fear.
Yeah.
And he sticks his hand in, he doesn't know he can't see, he doesn't know what's there. The camera perspective of this is a little weird because you can tell he's just kind of sticking his arm behind something.
Yeah.
But I mean, that doesn't bother me so much. So he sticks he walks through it, and you see this. I don't know if you're going to the planet or if you're just, it must be a doorway to that world.
Yeah. Because I mean, he falls into it and he's there, and then his brother he said, all I did was reach in and pulled you out.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you kind of see, but all the empty barrels there, and you see the little dwarves walking off. So they're another dimension or a planet. We don't really know, I guess.
So the tall man is taking bodies and turning squishing them down into zombie, dwarf, Jawa demons.
Yeah, and he said, and through that, Mike got this. I don't know how he did. But he found out it's because they have to be short because of the gravity and the heat of wherever they're at.
But that would mean tall man would have to be small too.
Yeah. Well, we come to find out in other sequels, the tall man doesn't like cold either. We found this. This is something that happens later in the sequels because they use that to their advantage.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe when the tall man goes there, he shrinks to little man.
But one thing that did strike me as funny is we talked about the porch jam session earlier.
Yeah.
And Reggie pulls out his little tuning fork and hits it at the end of it. That came back into play.
Yeah, because he got the two pillars there, and they're like you get that hum of like a tuning fork. Yep. Like when you hit it, it was it's the same thing.
And the idea of like, a tone generating a portal to another, like I like the science or the potential behind that. Like I like the fact that but then when he grabs them, it stops the hum and
because it's like a tuning fork. Once you touch it, it stops.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's kind of cool that you brought that up. It's like they're using frequency.
Yeah.
As a way to another dimension.
Yeah.
like
using sound waves as a portal
Yeah.
in a sense.
Reggie touches it like the tuning fork, that stops, and then all hell breaks loose. It's like all of a sudden now the portal is closing and it becomes a black hole. It's sucking in the drums. It's trying to suck in Reggie, everybody else. And then it's just, this is where the movie gets a little weird.
A little.
So, I mean, it's just,
I think at this point, like this, the movie just really started to feel like a fever dream at this point for me.
they get out of the house and then all of a sudden, the blonde is behind Reggie.
Yeah.
She's there. So then you're like, and then I believe she stabs him. And so then and Mike and Jody are watching it because remember the lights went out and they all got separated. So Jody and Mike are outside. Reggie gets out of the house, and then the blonde, aka tall man, stabs Reggie. They see it, and the house is doing this glowing motion. Of these different colors, and you're like, or not the house, but the Morningside. I guess it's the funeral home mausoleum area, and so Mike and Jody just leave Reggie. Like, hey, we'll get to it later. We got more important things to do. We'll get back to Reggie. And they drive away.
And they end up like, back at the house.
The glowing light. The light's all glowing as they're driving away. It's almost like, you know, in old sci-fi movies and even old horror movies, it's like the house about to explode.
Yeah.
Getting sucked into the portal.
Was this rock quarry or whatever, or the mining shaft, was that ever mentioned in the movie before this? I can't remember.
I don't think so. I don't think it ever was.
It was a pretty quick plan that they put together.
Jody says, I'm going to go move the barricades out of the way. I'm going to go get it set up. But I don't ever remember him telling Jody, well, I need you to go find the tall man and bring him to me. Or just Jody, when he left the house, he kind of knew the tall man would come to Mike.
Yeah, I think they know he was in pursuit of them.
Yeah.
So
because I know when Mike goes upstairs, he opens the window and there's the tall man in his window, and he comes freaking into the window, and he opens up the door, and we get the other boy.
Yeah.
Again, and then it shoots at them running away, and then the cool quote that I have.
Well, if you want to talk quotes, we'll do a bigger quote.
You're going to need a bigger quote.
So don't worry, Jason. I got the taglines this week.
Yay!
So I found two that I thought were really cool. I think there were a couple more, but if this one doesn't scare you, you're already dead.
I kind of like that one.
I do. I like that one a lot. But then there's the other one. There was a couple more that had the same theme as this one, but I thought this was the best one. But it says, if you're looking for horror that's got balls, it's found you.
Chrome balls at that.
Right. So
balls of steel.
Other than boy, any other quotes from this movie that stand out to you?
Yeah, the one to me was the one that's right here where we were just talking about the movie is tall man is pursuing Mike.
Yeah.
Like through the little wooded area, like a trail. And then you hear him say, you play a good game, boy, but the game is finished.
Yeah. And
that's like really some of the most talk you hear out of the tall man through the whole movie, other than at the beginning, the funeral was about to begin. You know, This is really the only other line other than boy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's about it. But I love that little line while he's running away.
Yeah.
And
but right about that time is when they get down this road, and this just comes out of nowhere. This whole mining shaft thing.
Yeah. Because Mike's running. I mean, he had actually bumped into the blonde again.
Yeah.
Before that, and he knew that it was wrong to get past her. And that, but right before this part is Mike's like he gets out of the little wooded area, I guess, at the trail, and he's just standing there looking. Like, oh, I guess because he knew that the tall man, and all of a sudden the tall man jumps out of the bushes.
Yeah.
And but when the tall man, he doesn't jump at him, he just goes at attention and just stares at Mike. And then Mike takes off running again and he chases him. But you can see Mike, I mean, he's hauling ass. And I actually, when I was a kid, I never paid attention. And even as an adult, you watch the movie, you know what's going to happen. But you just totally forget about the whole mine shaft thing.
Yeah.
You just know Mike is running away from the tall man. Mm-hmm. And then in the shot, I mean, I know you probably noticed it too. Mike's running, and then it does the underneath shot of looks like he's jumping over something.
Yeah.
And you're like, what's he jumping over? And then you realize it shoots back to the tall man.
Yeah.
And he goes through, like, I guess Jody put a blanket over the actual hole.
Right.
Which happens to be a perfectly rectangle hole.
Right. the avalanche that happens after this is so ridiculous.
How did they land right into the mine shaft on top of the tall man?
Especially,
I mean, he falls down there.
Not even how did they land? Like, that is another problem with this. But the biggest one is like, how the hell did he push these big rocks? Like, there's no way this guy, I mean, as big as he was, it's still like those rocks would not, I mean, those were some big ass rocks, man.
Yeah. I mean, one was a pretty good size, like boulder. I mean, it would crush a car. And then everything else fell into it. And you could kind of hear noises coming out of the pit too. Like maybe the tall man is not dead.
Yeah.
But maybe he is. You don't know. We're like, hey, it's over.
It's got a bunch of them.
But then this is where we've hinted at this through this whole episode.
Yep.
That something is off through the whole movie. I mean,
yeah,
Jody and Mike have saved the day, but then the next scene is an alive and perfectly healthy Reggie.
Yeah.
Talking to Mike in front of the fireplace.
Who we saw get killed in front of the funeral home.
Yeah, Reggie's dead. But then all of a sudden Reggie's there and he's talking to Mike and he says, but it wasn't a dream. And as an older or as an adult or older version of being a teenager, because I watched as a kid and you just cared about the scary part. You didn't care about this part except for the very end that we'll get to. But you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You're like, so this whole movie was a dream? And you're sitting there thinking, but that's the thing, because you mentioned it earlier. Mike drives the car. He fixes the car. He's hanging out with his brother because while him and Reggie are sitting there talking, they say Jody died in a car wreck.
Yeah.
Jody's dead. So was Mike having a dream of getting to drive around in his big brother's car, hanging out with his big brother, him and Reggie and Jody hanging out?
It would also, I mean, this is where my debate for this would be, is it also explains how Jody is, Mike is, why? We've gone this whole hour and a half and I'm still confusing these two. How is Mike magically always where Jody is? I mean, I know we're supposed to assume that he's following him, but he's always right. Like he's always where he needs to be.
Exactly.
You know?
So if it was a dream, it's him dreaming this whole thing. I mean, well, basically parts of it are a nightmare.
Yeah.
But like I said, the part where he gets to drive his brother's car, he can fix the car, because that's stuff that little brothers would do is like, I want to drive, big brother's badass freaking Barracuda around town, and he is. I mean, he's driving the car all the time.
But they're also smart in the way they play it too, because there is still the hint there that he could possibly do all of these things. Like his brother really could have taught him to drive. He could be really good at working on cars.
Yeah.
So I like that they leave things very ambiguous, but this ending is very just sort of like, what?
Yeah. But that's the thing is that you're making it think that it's all a dream. Everybody else is dead. It's just him and Reggie, because even Reggie says, dude, we need a break. Let's hit the road for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Like they're going to pack up and get out of town. And it's just Reggie and Mike. And they like he said, and Mike just keeps uttering, it felt so real. It felt so real. But he's saying, no, Jody's dead. And you can even go back and watch the movie. And like you said, some things where he gets thrown out the back of the windshield. And then it has this little sequence of then him running down the road. That seems very dreamy. Yeah. Like if you were having a dream of because the part where he gets thrown out of the Volkswagen, the next thing is Mike just running down a long road.
Yeah.
With the creepy Phantasm music playing. And that's very dreamlike.
Mm-hmm.
And even this part where Tall Man's walking down the sidewalk in town, that's kind of dreamlike.
Yeah.
So you're like, maybe the whole damn movie was a dream.
Yeah.
As an adult, you think that. But Mike's up in his room. It's reality as we feel.
Yeah. And
he's packing a bag. And then this is why I hate mirrors on doors.
Jump scare.
I mean, as a kid, I hated having a mirror on my door. I didn't want it.
Yeah.
Because you're so scared to shut the door and see something, because Mike shuts the door and there's the tall man standing in the mirror.
Yep. Boy.
Yeah, because he looks, there's nothing on the wall. And then he comes back. And I don't know if it was Tall Man or the dwarves all grabbing and pull Mike into the mirror.
Yeah. It's a really cool shot, the way they do that too.
And the end.
The end.
Is it no good guy saves the day? No heroic thing.
And see, I think, and you can tell me if you had this, but I think as a kid, you're far more freaked out by the end of this movie. Even as an adult, I have come to love ambiguous and dark, not so great endings.
Yeah.
And even though your slasher movies like Halloween and Friday the 13th and stuff end with these cliffhanger jump scare endings and stuff like that, with Jason jumping out or Freddy coming to get somebody. This one just seems a lot more dark to me.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, well, did I really just watch all of this, or was I watching a dream? Is this guy real? Isn't he real? Like it leaves a lot open, and I think that's really cool.
But yeah, it's the movie ends just kind of on a not feel good note.
Yeah.
Compared to even like Halloween, they kill the boogeyman. He falls out the window. I mean, he does walk away, but still Laurie survived.
Yeah.
Nightmare on Elm Street. Nancy survives. They kill Freddy. It's always been that way.
Yeah.
But this movie was one of the very first movies I can remember as a kid that did not end well. I mean, you think Mike is either dead or he got sucked into another dimension or something.
Right.
And you're just like, whoa. And because it just ends. And you're like, wow. Like you said, as a kid, it makes it scarier because there was no happy ending. There was no defeating the boogeyman.
Yeah.
He's still out there. The tall man is still out driving a hearse, chasing Jason through a cemetery on his bicycle. And that's why it made it scary. So but there's Phantasm.
Yeah. And I'm going to do a very, very quick, almost famous.
Almost famous.
I know that, dude.
I don't know them. I know her.
Haven't you ever heard of that guy? What's his name? That guy who was in that movie that was out last year.
I think the only person that you can really nominate for this is Angus Scrim.
Well, he went, because he did all 5 Phantasms.
Yeah.
Subspecies, Chopping Mall, Wishmaster.
Yep.
That's really about it. I mean, do you see anybody else?
I went through the entire cast. I couldn't find anybody that was anything else that really was anything I would have seen.
Yeah. There was Sally was the name of the one blonde girl. She was a Night of the Demon and Unlawful Entry. But I would say Angus Scrim was pretty much about it.
Yeah.
There were a few of these characters that went on to be in all of them.
Yeah.
Like every single one of them. The character that played Jody was in Phantasm 1, 3 through 5. The original Mike was in 1, 3 through 5. Reggie was in all of them, but he was also in Wishmaster and Bubba Hotep. So he got in there too. And then the caretaker, I would think, was in 1 and 5. And it's sad in the horror world because I think his name was Kenneth Jones. He actually just passed away like last week.
Oh, wow.
The caretaker, I think he said, passed away November 6th this year. And then we lost Angus Scrim back in 2016. And I believe he shot, I think, Phantasm 5, but he never got to see it because he passed away. So, but yeah, I would say thing with you, Josh. Yeah. I agree with you. Almost Famous had to be Angus Scrim, man. Well, rest in peace to both of those guys.
R.I.P. R.I.P. But let's get to our good, bad, and the ugly.
The good, the bad, the ugly.
Do you want to go first?
Well, I'll go first because I'm the fan, and then you can really tear it apart from there. The good for me is this movie was actually scary. If you were a kid and you saw this as a kid, it was one of the first movies I remember actually being scared because as an adult, I actually hunger for a movie that can scare me today.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen. And it's I guess I'm desensitized to the whole horror suspense genre that it's really hard to find movies that scare me, but it's nice when I can go back and watch movies like this and remember being actually scared and frightened of a movie when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So I think the good of this is the memory of being scared. The bad, I would say some of the pacing of the movie. I mean, it kind of jumps around a little bit, but like you said at the end, it may have been because that's kind of what the director wanted, because it was actually supposed to be a dream sequence. The whole movie was.
Right.
And I mean, we all know when we're dreaming, our dreams jump around and it's not consistent, and we go from one story to another. So the ugly, a lot of the practical effects, like the yellow blood, which very much just looked like canary yellow paint, the rubber hand, the critters, housefly, that stuff till to this day doesn't hold. I mean, when I was a kid, I thought it was cool, but even as I got a little older, before I was even in high school, you realize how cheesy it was.
Yeah.
So I don't think any of that holds up, but that's about all I can say, because I still love the movie, but yeah, it definitely does have flaws. So, all right, Josh, lay it on us.
So the good for me is the graveyard bed scene. Like, if I remember anything from this movie, it's going to be that scene. I think that is the perfect way to sum up this movie for anyone who may not have seen it. And it just is one of those that will stick with me forever. It's just a creepy, creepy scene. Everything about it works, especially, the fact that I know that they did this on a really tight budget and they were able to pull a shot like that off really impresses me.
And just to note, he's actually talking about the one where he's banging the blonde, not the other one.
No.
Nah, we know which one you're talking about. Yeah, the scary scene with Angus Scrim is,
and the zombies come out. I mean, that's
terrifying.
Is great. The bad is that fucking fly bat thing majig or whatever. Bad.
I'm going to call it critter fly from now on. It's critter fly.
I mean, I laughed at a few things in this movie, but that was just one of those that was like, oh my God, like I can't even laugh at this. This is bad. And my ugly is certain aspects of the score, or like that piano score during the car chase is, it's bleh. I mean, it has a very good score throughout, except for like little spots like that. Like I did not like that at all. So that would be my good, the bad, and the ugly.
Okay.
So
that's not too bad.
Yeah,
I figured you might have been a little more harsh on it because you didn't see this as a kid growing up. You're looking at it more with an adult eye, and
I mean, I think I did my bashing of it throughout of this. I mean, I have problems with certain aspects of it. Certain aspects of it do not work to this day for me, but I can definitely see a really good movie in here. It's one that I'll definitely go back and watch again, because, and even in us talking about it and thinking about it being a dream, the whole movie being a dream, it makes me want to go back and watch it again and be like, and look at it through that filter, you know, and be like, well, what should I be seeing if this was actually taking place in a dream, and look at it through those eyes. So I'll go ahead and jump to this. This is definitely worth a rental, in my opinion, because it has very good aspects, and it has some scenes in it that are very, very creepy. So it's worth a rental for me.
Yeah, definitely a rental for me. I mean, I can't tell how many times I did, but like I said, most times I saw it on TV anyway as a kid, and it was usually edited, so you didn't get to see all the boob shots from the creepy blonde that ended up being the tall man. Yeah, which is kind of disturbing. But definitely a rental. I recommend this to anybody that likes old horror, that like Josh hasn't actually even seen it yet. I mean, I know you've seen it now, but hasn't really watched it. Go back and give it another watch. Like Josh said, his second time through, he actually enjoyed it a little more than the first, and just kind of look at it for what it is. It's made in 1979. Yeah. They had a low budget, and they did the best they could, but it's still a good story. And I agree with what we said earlier. I definitely think this movie could use a remake with somebody that is passionate about it. And J.J. Abrams, I know you're listening, J.J. Abrams. So just go ahead and say, hey, the VHS Files said I should redo this movie, and that's why I'm doing it.
The last time J.J. Abrams delved into a property that people held dear, people didn't respond to it very well. So I don't know if it'll happen again.
That's true. Well, we're not on the same level as Star Wars as far as Phantasm goes.
Right.
So. But
so I mean, one thing I will point out, since we've been doing the horror section, is we have a little segment that we do specifically for horror movies that we did not do for Near Dark. And I'm going to correct that now, but we did not do Top Kills.
Top Kills.
So I would actually like to go back and say my top kill for Near Dark.
We're going back in time, not to be confused with people.
Yeah. So my top kill for Near Dark would have been the guy behind the bar that he kills with the spurs. Yeah.
Where he cuts his neck open multiple times and he just bleeds out.
Yeah, that would be my top kill for Near Dark. How about did you have a top kill for Near Dark?
Oh yeah, and we talked about it actually, and we just didn't do it. Is the shotgun through the door that shoots the cop?
Yeah,
that's. I mean, we even talked about it as being one of the best scenes in the movie. But is definitely my top kill is when he just shoots the cop through the door. But then Bill Paxton takes a beam of sunlight right to the stomach too. So there's a little twofer there, but yeah, that's my top kill. That was a fantastic scene.
Now
just blowing the cop away.
For top kill for this, I would probably think you and I would have the same top kill for Phantasm.
All right, let's lay it
on. So do you want to do a 3, 2, 1?
I'm trying to think. Top kill for this. No. Yeah, let's see if we got it.
Okay. Go on 3, 2, 1, go.
Critter kill.
Were you joking?
Why? What do you have?
The caretaker guy with the sphere.
Oh yeah. I'm just picking because I thought that's what you were going to be humorous about it. No. Of course, a freaking ball with a screw to the head and blood shooting everywhere. Yeah. It's really the only big kill of the whole movie,
right?
Because I mean, but that gets killed, and then the critter kill. I mean, I would go with either one of them. But yeah,
well, you've also got Tommy at the beginning who gets stabbed.
Yeah, but that's kind of.
Well, I mean, if you really think about it, if this whole movie is a dream, the only person who really died was Jody and his parents.
Yeah, or was in the dream, Tommy was a replacement for Jody being dead in real life. Something to ponder on, listeners. Yeah. You let us know.
This movie has questions that need to be answered. So
yes, I mean, well, if we all sat down and watched the rest of them 2 through 5, I think there's 5. We would probably have answers to those questions. But
yeah. I actually got on and tried to find 2 through the rest of them on streaming services, and you can find all of them except for part 2. I don't know if it was done under a specific company that's not releasing it on any digital or whatever, but I mean, you can buy it, but you can't stream it anywhere.
I do know, just like with Halloween 2, Universal picked it up.
Okay, that might explain why. Because you can't get Halloween 2 anywhere either.
Yeah, you can't get the follow up to John Carpenter's at all because Halloween Universal ended up distributing it because even on like when they have them on TV for the holidays, they skip part 2.
Yeah.
And then they'll have part 2 on a different channel, right? Because it's tied to Universal.
Yep. So
I think that's a lot what this is, and that's why they recast Mike was because Universal wanted to go with somebody else.
Yeah.
And the actor who did Mike does not like it, and I can understand why. But they brought him back for 3 through 5.
Yeah.
So, but that's Phantasm.
Yay.
We got through it. Yay!
That'll do it for this episode of VHS Files Presents the Horror Section. We do not know what movie we're going to be talking about next. This is kind of a fly by the seat of our pants sort of podcast. So
that's how me and Josh do it.
We may or may not have another one next week for you guys. It just depends on what our schedule looks like. If push comes to shove, we may do one with Eric and I, and Jason might have to sit one out. Or, I mean, like I said, you can expect to see us kind of go in and out on these episodes. So you may get Eric sometimes, you may get Jenny, you may get me, and you may get all kinds of different stuff. So me and Jason are the primaries on this one, but we're still going to have everybody else on from time to time. So
and we might even have guests if we have some friends out there that will be interested. Let us know. We'll bring you on, even on the main show.
And when I told our buddy Nathan from 2 Drinks and the Haunting podcast, give them a little love, that we were doing this, and when I did Near Dark, he was like, "Oh man, like Near Dark is one of my favorite vampire movie. It might be my favorite vampire movie." So,
well, darn. Well, next time, Nathan, we'll any vampire movies from now on, we have to consult with Nathan before doing them.
right.
Or anything like that. If we get into the full moon movies and the puppet masters and stuff on here, because that's stuff that we would basically be doing on that, we definitely have to bring Nathan in, because me and Nathan have had a lot of conversations about puppet masters.
Never met another person that was such a professional at knowing information about Puppet Master, but Mr. Nathan Simmons is.
Oh, dude, he's great. He is so great. So,
but that'll do it for us this week. We will be back with another episode whenever we can get one recorded for you. But until then, be kind, rewind. See you later.
Played a good game, boy. But the game is finished.
It's over. You've been listening to the VHS Files Presents the Horror Section. Please leave us a rating and a review wherever you get your podcast. Interact with us on Facebook at VHS Files Podcast, Instagram at VHS.Files, and Twitter at VHS_Files. Email us at the.vhsfiles@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.
yeah, I'm good. Yeah, little baby Jason watching the Phantasm. Peter Piper picked a pecker.